introduction. Gentlemen, as Mark said, 15 years I spent at Liverpool, and it was 15 great years, to be fair. Well, there was 12 great years, and then fucking Graham Souness come back. But I must be honest with you, Liverpool was the last team in England that I ever thought I would play for or I ever wanted to play for. Because as a kid growing up in Dublin in the 60s, like most kids growing up in Dublin in the 60s, the only team I ever really wanted to play for was Manchester United. I was a big Man United fan. I'll tell you why. My dad took me to a game when I was 6 years of age in Dublin. And it was a League of Ireland select team versus Manchester United. It was the great Manchester United team in the 60s, the team that had just won the European Cup against Benfica at Wembley. Now, my dad was also an Irish international. He got 2 caps for the Republic of Ireland, and he knew the 2 full-backs playing for Man United that night, 2 Irish lads, Shea Brennan and Tony Dunn. And they brought me into the dressing room before the game, and I was introduced to, amongst others, George Best, Dennis Law and Bobby Charlton. And it was from that day I became a big Man U fan. It was from that day it was my ambition to play for Manchester United. Now, can you imagine how excited I was? 14 years of age, Man United scout turns up at my door in Dublin, invites me over to Old Trafford for trials. I spent 2 weeks training at Manchester United, and I must have impressed somebody because Man United offered me an apprenticeship when I was 15. Now, I felt I was a little bit too young to leave home at the time, so I stayed on to finish school in Ireland. I still trained with Man United every school holiday, and I still held on to that ambition that one day I would play, maybe even one day I would score for Manchester United. It took me 22 years from the day I met my heroes Best, Law and Charlton, but in 1989 I finally realised one of my childhood ambitions, and I scored for Manchester United. At Old Trafford, in the Stretford end. Now, the only downside to that was I was playing for Liverpool that afternoon, but I am still proud of that goal. I'm so proud of that goal because I do hold the distinction of scoring the greatest own goal ever seen at Old Trafford. There was a long ball played over United's defence, was headed away by the Liverpool centre-back Glenn Hussein. I latched onto it quickly, about 25 yards from goal, and I played a delightful right foot half volley which sailed over the goalkeeper's head into the top of the net. Magnificent goal, really, believe me. Now, I've seen the goal since many times on DVDs and videos, and I still can't blame myself 100% for that goal. On the day, with a 6'3" goalkeeper standing on his line when the ball dipped in over his head, but luckily it didn't matter. John Barnes got a couple that day. We won the game at Old Trafford 2-1, so all the Liverpoolians were happy. I was delighted. I'd finally done it. I'd scored for Manchester United. And Bruce Grobbelaar was ecstatic. He had 10 grand on the tune. But it was. Won 3 European Cups. Unbelievable achievements he had in Europe. But Bob didn't like foreigners. And as we're leaving the dressing room 10 minutes before the game, Bob stops us at the door and he says, "Right, you know how I feel. Foreigners. Fucking hate them." He said, "You know what they're going to do? They're going to pull your hair, they're going to pull your jersey, they're going to fall down, they're going to roll over." He said, "But you cannot retaliate. Do not retaliate in this game tonight." He said, "At some stage in the game, they may even spit in your face." He said, "But you're just going to have to fucking swallow it and get on with it." But his worst one was names, hopeless with names. One Saturday, he come in the dressing room half an hour before kick-off, looking pretty happy with himself. He said, "I've just been introduced to Rod Stewart in the Players' Lounge." Now, at the time, we had a young Scottish full-back called Steve Nicol. And Nico jumped up off the seat and he said, "I've always wanted to meet Rod Stewart." So Nico shot off down the Players' Lounge. 2 minutes later, he was back in the dressing room. He sat down and he looked at Bob. He said, "It's fucking Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics." But amongst the players, we had a name for Bob. Amongst the players, we all called Bob Dougie. We called Bob Dougie because usually when Bob couldn't remember an opposition player's name, everybody for some reason became Dougie Doings. Now, one of my early games for Liverpool was against Man United at Anfield, and I'm not too clued up on the Dougie Doings business. 10 minutes before kick-off, Bob's walking across the dressing room towards me, and I'm thinking, great, the greatest manager that ever lived, is now going to tell me exactly what he wants me to do today. When to attack, when to defend, when to pass, when not to pass. Bob walked over and he said, right son, he said, from their corners, I want you to pick up Dougie. And I said, Gaffer, hang on a minute. I said, which one of them is Dougie? He said, you know, the Dougie Doings. And he walked off. 15 minutes into the game, Man United got a corner in the Cop End, and I was standing on the edge of the box, looking for fucking Dougie. And I see McQueen come forward, and I was thinking, Dougie McQueen. I was like, Gordon McQueen. And then I remember he said the big one. I looked in the box, two big players in the box were Stapleton and Moran. I knew them two Irish lads, Frank and Kevin. Man United were just about to take the corner. I'm desperate. Nearest Liverpool player to me was Alan Hansen. I run over, I said, Al, quick, do me a favour. I said, which one of them's Dougie? And he just smiled at me, and he said, they're all Dougie, just fucking pick one of them up, But like all players that went to Liverpool, late 70s, early 80s, you had to serve an apprenticeship of sorts in the reserves to learn what they said was to play the Liverpool way. I spent about 18 months in the reserves before Bob finally gave me my chance in 1981. A Friday night home game against Stoke City. The game was on the Friday night because the Grand National was on the Saturday. We used to play Friday nights, Saturday mornings back then. But I had not been involved with the first team squad all week. I'd not trained with them at all week. So on the Thursday after training, I decided to go to Aintree with a lad I was in digs with called Kevin Sheedy, who later went on to play for Everton. And we drank all day at the races. When the races finished, we went there for a few more pints that night. But when I got back to my digs that night, the landlady was waiting up. And she said, the club have been looking for you all day. You've got to report for training tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Bring your suit because you're going to a hotel in the afternoon and then on to the game at night. For 18 months I had been desperate to play for Liverpool Football Club. But that night in bed, I just hoped and I prayed that I would be the odd man out in the squad the next day. The one they bring along who just is there, just in case anybody gets ill, because I'd been drinking all day Thursday. And things were going according to plan till an hour before kick-off when I see Bob walk across the dressing room towards me. And he handed me the number 5 jersey of Ray Kennedy, who just failed the fitness test. And he said, you're playing left side midfield, all the best. I was 19 years of age and I sat down in the corner and had a look around the dressing room. Ray Clements was still in goal. Phil Neal, Phil Thompson, Alan Kennedy, Alan Hansen, Dalglish, Souness, Terry McDermott, David Johnson. And I said to myself, I can't do this. I'm not good enough to be in a dressing room with these players, let alone go and play a game on Anfield with them. But my dad said to me before I left home, he said, Ronnie, when you go away, the better the player you play with, the better the player you will become. Now, I had half a chance here because some of these were the best players in Europe, if not the world at the time. And also, luckily, they weren't just good footballers, they were good people. They always tried to look after the young kids coming into the squad. And they looked after me so well, in fact, that day, after 20 minutes, I latched onto a through ball from Sammy Lee, run through 40 yards on goal, touched under the goalkeeper to score on my debut at Anfield. And after the game, I said to myself, that's it. I've enjoyed this too much. 19 years of age or not, they're not going to get me out of this first team. I will do everything possible to stay in this team now. I'll stay in every night. I'll train hard every day. I'll stop drinking and shagging and well, I'll train hard every day. But all the next week I'm back in the first team and I must be doing well. They're keeping me involved in the squad all week. Thursday was always our hardest day. I'd do me hard training on the Thursday, go back to my digs in the afternoon, sitting watching the telly, feet up, getting ready for the game on the Saturday. Landlady walks in and says, your dad is on the phone. Now my dad had missed my debut. And he said, Ronnie, I've missed your debut, but I will not miss the next one. He said, I'm coming over on Saturday with some friends. Can you get me some tickets? I said, Dad, all I can do is go see Bob after training tomorrow and see what he says. I went into Bob's office after training on the Friday, explained the situation about my dad missing my debut. But I said, Gaffer, he's coming over on Saturday to watch. I said, is it possible I can have a couple of extra tickets? And Bob said, how many do you need? And I said, well, is it possible I could have 4? And Bob said, I'll tell you what. You can have 5. You can sit with him. You're not fucking playing.